The Tiempo Legend 5 is one of my all-time favorite Nike football boots and one of my all-time favorite leather football boots. And this is the top model of all the Tiempo Legend 5s. This, of course, is the Tiempo Legend 5 Premium, the Francesco Totti Special Edition. Now, this is an absolutely stunning box to start out with. You get an all-black matte box with this nice logoed Nike gladiator mask. He was known in Roma as sort of the warrior, the gladiator, and it shows kind of as his emblem here. A fun little nugget is his number 10 is actually built into the mouth of this Nike gladiator mask, which is very, very cool. Super simple box as well. You just have the old Nike football logo there, and then you do have the size guide. So these are a size 9 US, which is actually a half a size down from what I usually get in the Tiempo Legend 5. The Tiempo Legend 5 fit a little bit short, similar to the Magista Obra 1 and 2, and it gives me a much better fit if I go to a 9.5, but unfortunately there's not that many of these left on the market, and so going with my usual 9 US is kind of the best I'm gonna do in terms of fit and comfort. You have the Tiempo Legend 5 Premium in firm ground, of course a 9 US, UK 8, 27 centimeters, and a Euro 42.5. Now, let's get these unboxed. Here we go. Oh my days. Now, full disclosure, if you guys have been watching my channel for a really long time, this is actually a pair that I've already reviewed. If you go way back in the day, one of my first or some of my first reviews, this was actually a boot that I reviewed. Now, the funny story is, as we take a look at these boots, the funny story is that I actually, in the move from Seattle to Rochester and Detroit and then back to Australia, in that whole moving thing, I sold a ton of football boots. These are numbered out of 3,000, by the way, number 1,251 there, which is really, really cool. A very, very limited pair of football boots. And in this move, essentially what happened was I sold a bunch of boots and obviously had to move. I've rebuilt most of my collection, either buying boots with that money or getting boots from Ultra or other places like that. This was a pair that I genuinely believed I had sold, and it was one of those pairs that I was sort of crying about because it's one of my favorite Tiempos of all time, favorite leather boots of all time, and of course this special edition, along with my other Grail pair, the same boot but in the Ronaldinho edition. These are kind of my two Grail Tiempos. It's like the best of the best of the best. And I was really bummed, and I actually was in America about a week and a half ago as of the filming of this video, and my parents were like, hey, you need to go through the storage room downstairs, this little, room that we've got, and we've got a ton of, winter gear and Christmas ornaments and decorations and stuff, all the stuff that you would put in a storage room or a closet or a garage or something like that. It's things that basically you don't need all the time, right? And so because I live here in Australia, I have a small box, me and my wife, of winter gear that we're not really going to use in Melbourne. So I'm fishing through there, and I've got this little chest that I used to do for summer camps. I used to bring this chest on this month-long summer camp, Camp Nor'Wester, if those of you who are in America know what that is. Camp Nor'Wester had this big trunk, so I opened this big trunk, and I'm like, oh, some climbing, like a climbing harness, I've got an old pair of shoes, and then I'm rummaging around, and I see the top of this box, and I literally called my wife immediately and was like, holy, this is the greatest moment of my boot collecting. I'm so happy I didn't get rid of these. So without further ado, the tech specs of the Tiempo Legend 5 Totti. These are one of my favorite looking pair of football boots ever created. So you do have this really beautiful, the Gladiator logo similar to there. So you've got the logo on the bottom of the sock liner. It's an all black leather construction. Now these are, I believe, made in Montebelluna due to the leather quality as well. So this is 3,000 pairs in the world. Absolutely stunningly soft leather there for the entirety of this upper. It's got like almost a matte stickiness sensation to it, which is a really nice touch. It's actually slightly different than the Ronaldinho version, number 1770 out of 3,000. This one's a lot more how would you say, this leather isn't maybe as premium as the Totti version. They're both, I believe, made in Montebelluna, very, very rare, obviously. But this leather actually feels slightly more premium, whereas this one feels similar to the initial or the regular launch colorways of the Tiempo Legend 5 Elite, just a little bit more premium on that end, or more of a non-sticky finish. So this is a full Alegria K leather and the hydrophobic mesh on the inside. You guys will see some internal I almost said drone shots, internal probe lens shots of this internal mesh. And basically what that mesh did was it created not only this really beautiful pillowy sensation, but it's also hydrophobic. So despite, which means hydro is water and phobic is a phobia, like a fear of, or a rejection of, right? So that little definition for you. Hydrophobic mesh underneath the leather, so despite the leather potentially retaining a little bit of water, your feet didn't get as wet because of that hydrophobic mesh underneath, which is a really cool feature as well. So we get the other one out of the box. Beautiful silver tongue there, like a metallic, very shiny, very slippery. And then you do have a suede tongue as well, or excuse me, suede heel liner, which is slightly different from the normal edition of the Tiempo Legend 5. You do get the Nike football bag there, and then you also have, you can kind of see it shining on the light, the same Gladiator logo there. So very, very cool. And we're gonna put this back in the box. And here we go. Absolutely stunning, in my opinion. I think these are just one of the most beautiful boots ever to be created. Now, this sole plate is actually very, very popular even in modern day times. This one and the normal sole plate for the Tiempo Legend 4, the Elite carried the same stud pattern as the regular Tiempo Legend 4, but was obviously a full carbon fiber plate as well. This Tiempo Legend 5 sole plate is actually still used for a lot of professional players who use this sole plate or the Tiempo Legend 4, both very similar, conical studs on the lateral and medial side with some bladed studs there in the forefoot area for a little bit of forward movement and traction, which is really nice as well. So the moisture blocking hypershield technology, which was on the normal edition, I don't believe is actually on this particular model. That's because, of course, this was much more of a bespoke fit, a bespoke materials, a different construction process as the normal Tiempo Legend 5 Elite. And you did get ACC as well on those normal editions, whereas this one I don't believe does because it's that raw, untreated Alegria leather, which is really cool. The outsole is made from TPU, and it's got a really nice and neutral feel to it. It's one of the sole plates that I think is probably, I would say it's probably maybe top 5 or top 10 of all time for me because of how balanced it feels. And if you can see, a lot of sole plates will have a pretty wide forefoot or toe box area, and then they'll come really narrow for the heel and the midfoot. You see that in modern day Adidas boots. You see that in modern day, even modern day Nike boots to some extent. And then there's some other really unbalanced ones. I would say the GX2 is one of those in firm ground that feels pretty unbalanced because it just doesn't have the combination of width of outsole plus the stud length not being overkill. And these ones were a firm ground outsole, but as you can see, the studs are not all that long by, most modern day standards. In fact, if we pull out, let's just pull out a random one. Actually, that color is going to be really aggressive. So let's pull out a leather F50 or the F50 Messy, right? So as you can see, in terms of stud length, the Messy studs are probably about 1 millimeter or 2 longer on average and quite a bit larger. And yes, they're both FG. Yes, this is technically a speed boot, so you'd kind of expect them to be a little bit more aggressive, but I think my point stands in terms of how balanced this sole plate is. I would say that the modern Tiempo Legend 10 also follows this design structure and is a great sole plate. The problem is that it's gone narrower and narrower as times have moved on. And we even saw that in Tiempo Legend 9 as well, which is unfortunate. Needless to say, this is one of my favorite sole plates in the entire world, and it's just absolutely super, super comfortable to wear as well. These ones come in right around 240 grams, 250 grams, depending on the size, and they are one of those boots that isn't going to be lightweight by any stretch of the imagination, but with a boot that's this good and this comfortable and this premium, no one really cares anyway. The Tiempo Legend 5 was always a boot that, sure, you could argue was not as lightweight, and Tiempo Legend 9 was sort of that pinnacle of leather, lightweight, followed the same design principle and modern tech as a Morelia Neo series or the DS Lite X Fly 5 series, kind of combining leather with modern day technology. This was also that, but way back in 2014, 2013. So this is an absolutely incredible pair of football boots. These will not be getting a play test for obvious reasons, but I did want to review these again for the first video with my new studio background. And again, same studio, same room, just completely rearranged. But these are a very special pair of football boots that I have rediscovered in my parents' basement, which is amazing. And I have brought them all the way to Australia in this box. So wanted to show them to you and give you a little bit of a review of one of the most iconic Tiempos of all time. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and I will see you guys in the next video.